friends, Lori here. I'm here today to do a video that I don't think I've ever really done before, but because I am such a seasonal reader, I have a lot of fall themed books that are coming out or have came out this fall in 2021 when I'm filming this that I'm just really excited for. Most of these have to do with some like fall theme, like they're fall themed or they're eerie and creepy. But I want to focus on one book first because it's not really eerie and creepy, but it features one of my favorite authors. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Daughter of the Deep by Rick Riordan. This is a 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea retelling, and I've read about, I would say about 74 pages of it so far. I'm really liking it. I always like Rick Riordan's writing style. He just writes really compelling reads, and it's such a fast-paced story. I've never read a 20,000 League Under the Sea retelling, but it basically follows this girl named Anna, and she goes to this school that has to do with like aquatic technology, and she goes to a school called HP. There's another school, and they're kind of like competing. They don't know why they're competing, but there's a very, very obvious reason that these two schools are competing. But when something goes wrong, when they are trying to like get to the next level, they're trying to graduate, their world is turned upside down. And I've read about 74 pages, and I honestly don't want to put this book down. It has a lot to do with STEAM, which as a teacher, I really do like, and I just love his writing style quite a bit. There also is some really good representation. I haven't read the whole book, so I don't want to like say like the whole book has good representation, but I'm just really, really liking it. So I want to give this a shout out. This date, like many dates for Disney Publishing, got pushed. It was supposed to come out earlier in October, but now it's coming out October 26th. I got an arc of this because I'm on a blog tour for it, but I'm really excited for this one and hoping that you will check it out when it comes out in October. But this was the one book that wasn't eerie and creepy that I was really excited for. So another book that I'm really excited for, it comes out in November, and it's by Amanda Foody and Christina Lynn Herman. I've read books by both of these authors, and it's really exciting. So the tagline had me, "You fell in love with the victors of Hunger Games, now prepared to meet the villains of bloodball." And this is like a dystopian themed novel. I think that there is like a competition element to it, which sounds really, really good. And I'm really excited for this one, but I'm going to go look up like a more in-depth summary, but this one does come out in November, but I want to talk to you guys a little bit more about this. I did get this from Tortine, so I'm going to go find a summary for you guys, and then I'll come back and we'll chat about it. I'm going to tell you guys the summary of this book, but it is every generation, the coming of a blood moon, 7 families in the remotely city of Plymouth, each name a champion to compete in a tournament to the death. The prize, exclusive control over wellspring of high magic, and there's a tell-all book that thrusts all these champions into a worldwide spotlight, granting them each new information, new means to win, and most importantly, a choice. Accept their fate or rewrite the story. I am intrigued right off the bat. I like that there's some type of like social media element. Those books always captivate me, and I'm really excited for this one. I like both of these authors. I'm going to try to get to this one in November. That's when it comes out. But it sounds really, really good, and I like books written by 2 authors because I think that they can kind of expand the world, and there's a lot of characters. There's also a lot of characters in the story, and I think that is helpful by 2 authors. But I will definitely give you my thoughts as I keep reading this. But this book sounds really cool when I got an arc of it. That's why I wanted to share with you. But this one does come out in November. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about are books that I have read already, and they already are out. The first is Witches of Brooklyn by Sophie Escobar. I picked this up recently at a Barnes & Noble, so I think it came out this year. But this is a graphic novel, and I know sometimes we look for quicker reads to read during the Halloween season. This would be great. So this one, you follow a girl named Effie, and her mom winds up passing away. She winds up moving to Brooklyn to be with her aunts, and she finds out that they are witches, and also she is, and they have to solve a problem together. The art style in this is really, really cute. It reminds me of the art style in Mooncakes or in the Babysitter's Club series, but it's really, really fun, and I just like the dynamics of this. I love the dynamics between her and her aunts. It was just really, really fun. So I wound up giving this one 3 stars for review. But if you're looking for a quick Halloween read, not really scary, but more just like getting into the spirit, I would definitely pick this one up. Another book that I picked up, which came out relatively recently, was Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I really like this one. I gave this one 4 stars for review, But this one you follow a girl named Clara, and she is known as an Everwitch, which means she is connected to all the seasons' magic. Winter, spring, summer, fall. It also makes her incredibly powerful, but because of this power, she's a little bit dangerous. And whenever she has emotions for someone, her magic leads to their death in some capacity. And she's a little bit isolated, but as more climate change disasters start happening, she has to really dig deep to find out if her powers could be used for good. There's a romance in here, and it was really, really fun. I really like this one. Gave it 4 stars. She is dealing with a lot of grief, anxiety, and depression due to her past. So being in her head is sometimes a little bit hard, but I really like this one and would definitely recommend you're going to check it out if you're looking for an eerie and creepy read. This one's definitely more witchy, but it does deal with some harder topics as well. Books that I picked up in late summer that I just haven't got around to reading yet, but they scream fall to me. So, The River Has Teeth by Erica Waters. This is the same author that wrote Ghostwood Song, which I also haven't read yet. But this is about a missing character, about a family that is channeling magic, and these two characters are sort of forced to work together, hide their secrets to figure out what happened to Natasha's sister. And there was magic at the heart of the story. Sounds great. I really hope I get around to reading this one because it sounds like a perfect, eerie, creepy read. This one came out in late summer, and but there are secrets abound. And the last line is, Natasha is angry and Della has little to lose. So that sounds really, really good, and I'm really excited for this one. Another one that came out late summer was Broken Web by Laura M. Lee. This is the same author that wrote Forest of Souls, and it's a sequel to it. I really liked that book. It was like an eerie and creepy version of a story. It had to do with, I think this one had to do with, like, she took her soul. There were shamans involved. There was a really eerie and creepy forest. This really focused a lot on friendship and sisterhood, and I was totally here for it. I really am excited for this one as well. I haven't read it yet, but it is high on my list. And I haven't read too much of the summary because I don't want to spoil myself, but I really did like Forest of Souls. I read it last fall. I really liked it, and I'm definitely excited to dive into this one as well. These are books that are out relatively recently or just seem really, really cool to me. So the first one is Forest of Souls by June Her. This is the same author that wrote, I think she wrote Silence of Bones, which I really liked. I read it last year, and this one has to do, it's set in 1426. And the Juan family has never been same since her sister went missing years ago. But she was found unconscious near a gruesome crime scene, and years later, Detective Min's father learns 13 girls have disappeared from the same forest. And he travels to try to find out what happens, and he goes missing as well. So Min has to solve the case of what happened to her father and these 13 girls, including her sister. That sounds super captivating, and I'm really excited to dive in. I actually just got this one from my library. It's a historical fiction read. I really like Silence of Bones. It wasn't my favorite, but I loved her writing style, so I'm really excited and really hopeful that I'll be able to pick this one up in October so I can dive into it and complete it. But yeah, this one's definitely one that has intrigued me for sure. Another book that I'm really excited for is the sequel to The Inheritance Games, and that is The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. The first one was like a nice mix of between Knives Out, also Clue, and it is the direct sequel. In the first book, Avery found out she was the unexpected heiress to this big fortune. She was kind of sent for a year to live with this family with all of these 4 boys. Kind of had Paper Princesses vibes, but a lot less darker. And it had a lot of mysteries in it, and there was a lot of male characters that I really, really liked. So I really like this one. I'm dying to get to the sequel. This cover is so pretty. I recommend any of Jennifer Lynn Barnes' series for the fall, but this is the current series that she's publishing, which I will definitely be reading, and hopefully I get around to it soon, because there was a romance that was heating up that I was really invested in. Another book that I picked up relatively recently was White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson, and this has to do with a haunted house. If you know anything about me in my real life, I am a scaredy cat. I don't like horror at all, but I've heard such good things about Tiffany G. Jackson's writing, so I'm hopeful that I will be able to get to this one, and then if I really like this one, it will go back and read her backlist. But the haunted house has me intrigued enough, and this cover is just so pretty. we can just admire that. But yeah, this one came out relatively recently, and I'm super excited for it. Another book that came out at the end of summer was The Witchhaven by Sasha Payton Smith. This was a book that I had pre-ordered. I'm really excited for this. And the quote is, "Well-behaved witches seldom make history." It's set in 1911 in New York City. And she lives as a seamstress, but something happens where she's attacked and she winds up killing a man, and she's wound up sent to this sanitarium. But it's not a sanitarium, it's where witches are trained, and she has to learn how to control her magic, and she has to kind of start uncovering secrets. Sounds really, really cool. The cover is super pretty. I love historical fiction novels, so I really hope that I get around to this one as well. Hopefully soon. We will see what the TBR gods decide, because I have to film that video next. Yes, so those are like all like the YA versions that I have stuff included, or I have like the physical copies of. But let's get to 2 adult books that I'm really excited for. One is Witch Please by Anne Aguirre. This is a contemporary romance. Danica Stewart is a fully modern witch. After a messy breakup, Danica makes a pact with her cousins. They'll keep their hearts protected and fun without involving the overly opinionated, seldom without involving their mothers. And then Titus Baker has family travel alone. He owns a bakery, and they're basically they're not interested in romance, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And I'm really excited for this one as well. It sounds really, really cute. The cover is really, really engaging, and I hope to get to this relatively soon. I have to get to it next because it's a 14-day library hold, and yeah, I need to get to that. Another witchy themed novel is The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. And this is like never this mix vodka and witchcraft. Cast a spell with a spine-tingling romance full of wishes, witches, and hexes gone wrong. This was pitched to me as Stars Hollow meets magic, which I was here for. But Vivian, she winds up 9 years ago after a broken heart. She winds up casting a spell on her ex, and she doesn't think it's going to work. And then 9 years later, that spell comes to fruition, and they have to kind of work together to solve it. Sounds super cute. I literally just got this book from Barnes & Noble today, so I really hope that I will get around to it, hopefully soon. But this cover, it's just made me smile when I saw it. So now let's get into a couple of books that aren't out yet, but do have my buying tendencies up, or my buying intent is up. About 2 books that I've read a little bit early. The first book I'm going to talk about is Luminous by Maria Rutherford. This is the author that wrote the Winter's Curse series. I read this book a little bit early, and I actually really liked it. So here's a photo. This is the author that wrote the Crown of Pearl series, not that series. Sorry, I made a small error. But this is about a girl that has magic, and magic is not allowed in the society. But once it is realized that she's magic, she's sort of sent to be a political pawn and sent to the town. And she hopes that if she goes there, she can protect her sisters and her father from the after effects of her magic. And it was a very, very slow-paced story, but I really liked it. It had some political elements. I really liked the magic system. Reminded me a little bit of the magic system in the Shadow and Bone series, because when I was reading this, I was watching the TV show, so it gave me vibes of that. So if you were a fan of like the Shadow and Bone series and like that magic system, this magic system reminded me a lot of it. It was not like a very crazy and insane fantasy story. It was more of a quiet story, but it did involve witches, and I'm always looking for witch novels, so this one I was really happy that I picked up. The next book I'm going to talk about is called The Keeper of the Night. This book has to do with the underworld, and here is a photo. The concept of the Percy Jackson series, and really like the older series or the Heroes of Olympus series, I would definitely recommend this one. But you follow this Japanese hero, and she starts her life living in London, and she's a Shigani, and she basically takes souls and sends them to their death. But when she's in London, she realizes that her powers are a little bit more dangerous and they're not the traditional power because she has a Japanese heritage and she has a Japanese background. But when she and her brother when she and her half brother wind up running away to Japan after an incident, she winds up getting sucked into the underworld. And it's a really compelling read. It's a very very slow paced story, but the end is action packed. I did not see the end coming. I love the focus on the relationship with her brother. It really makes your heart hurt towards the end. I'm dying for the sequel because the end was so crazy and I definitely didn't see it coming. But if you're a big fan of Percy Jackson and looking for a more mythology reads, this one definitely reminded me a lot of Heroes of Olympus, House of Hades. That was very similar to the vibe that I got. I really liked it. Definitely would recommend you check it out. Also check it out if you just like strong brother and sister dynamics. Um, and also if you like the Cruel Prince series, I think the main relationship in this story might be one that you would also really enjoy. The book I am going to chat about is one that I haven't read yet, but I am intrigued, and that is Kingdom of the Cursed. And this is by Kerry Maniscalco. This was the book that I adored last year. So many people had really mixed opinions about this, but I really like this one. So here's a photo. I saw this tagline on Amazon and I wanted to give you guys the tagline because I think it's perfect. One sister, two sinful princes, infinite deception with a side of revenge. Welcome to hell. And I was really intrigued by this story. It basically follows this girl. Her twin sister is murdered, and she's sort of starting to uncover why her twin sister was murdered. The end left up on a big cliffhanger. Again, it reminded me a lot of that House of Hades book in the Rick Riordan series. I'm really excited for this book. Really excited for the characters, and hopefully I enjoy it just as much as I like the first one. So, and the next book we are going to talk about in this video is a book called The Dark Affinity. I haven't read this book yet, but its concept seems really cool. It's coming out in October, and here's a photo. It's a little bit of a summary about this book, and hopefully you guys are just excited about it as I am. But it's a witch's curse leaves a young man no more than bones. He's caught in an unending cycle of death and resurrection, and Anuka only wants to find the death that's been prophesied for him, especially one that begins when he's not still alive. But then the kingdom is sacked, and the loyal handmaid to the princess is assaulted and left for dead, and they have to work together to figure out what's going on in their community. And it just sounds really interesting. I love when characters are forced to team up. I don't think that was like the best summary, but the cover is really really pretty, and any book about witches I tend to love and read, so I'm really excited for this one. And the cover definitely sold me, and I love anything about witchcraft and characters forced to work together, so I'm excited for this one. What about is The Color of Dragons. Here is a photo, and we will get into the summary in a little bit. Another book where characters are forced to work together. Definitely a favorite trope of mine. But again, it has magic. Maggie's powers are fickle, and with no one to help to control her magic, her life debt she owes, which is internally over her head with no way to repay it. So it seems like her magic is really, really fickle, and until she can get her magic working, she's going to be in debt for a very, very long time. But then she winds up teaming up with Griffin, the king's champions, and famous for hunting down the dragonauts that plague their kingdom. Neither has any idea of the destiny that they carry, or that their meeting will set up a chain of events that will alter every aspect of the life they know and all of history thereafter. I'm hooked. I really want this book. This book sounds awesome. I know I have to read a dragon book for one of my reading challenges. This might be a perfect book for that. Again, has some magic tucked into it. And I like that like the character is struggling with her magic. You don't ever see that in YA fantasy books. They always just are really good at their magic and it happens in like 5 minutes. This book seems it's going to be a little bit more complicated, and I'm here for that. Talk about in this video is called Lake Edge. I actually do have an e-arc of this, so I will probably get around to it hopefully soon, but here's a photo. This book was all I needed, and it is pitched to me as a lush gothic fantasy about monsters and magic set on the banks of a cursed lake, perfect for fans of Naomi Novak and Bridget Kimmerer. I'm here, so I'm really excited for that, and hopefully I'll get around to reading it soon. These are some books that I just would consider you keeping an eye out for this fall. They're coming out in October. Some of them are coming out in November. Some of them are already out. Let me know in the comments if I've missed any. I'm sure I have, but these are just books that I'm keeping my eye on, and I hope you guys are having a great day, and I'll talk to you guys soon for my next video. Bye, friends.